What's good, everybody? What's up, man? This is Stephen Qualls II, aka Mr. Qualified. It's your boy. And I'm back with my second interview of the follow-up series, man. And again, like all these people, I feel like I have very genuine relationships with. And my guest today is no different. I will let him introduce himself and let you know who he is. And then we will get right into this follow-up interview, man.
What's up, y'all? It's your boy, Marcelese Cooper, artist, educator, grad student, and individual in debt to the institution.
Look, that's so real. Like individual in major debt, because what is my life about to be like when I'm done? I'm done. But yeah, man, grad school now. I think that's probably one of the main differences. I mean, I'm trying to think how I'm a year older than you, right? You were the class under me.
Yeah.
Okay, so talk about that decision when I interviewed you about 3 years ago now. You were you had to be a junior,
I
I
think
think,
so.
maybe
Yeah.
sophomore, maybe even younger than that. But in the midst of undergrad, in the midst of figuring things out, I know it was funny because you being from California, that was always my main question, like how you end up in Missouri. Like I came to Missouri but from Wisconsin, so like I guess it kind of makes sense. But California, like what, like how does that how did that work? But you're here now, you're in grad school. Talk about kind of the time in between when we last interviewed and where you are now in grad school, what you're in school for, and all those type of things.
For me, when I think about coming out of undergrad, because one of my main goals is really, at least while I'm even in grad school, is I want to eventually teach, whether that's at high school, community college level, or I know college level you do get some money, which is nice, but I'm more interested in that kind of pocket of time where I know for me, my art teachers were very supportive and impactful for at least on my life. So eventually I want to be able to do that, and I'd rather not go back to school. So I was like, I think maybe the end of that semester where we had our first interview, I was like, I need to do this now because I'm not gonna have the energy when I'm like reaching 30 to go back. At least I don't project that to be the most likelihood. But um, there's been a lot of projects that I've worked on. I would say I've grown quite a bit out of always wanting to grow, but certainly out of necessity. Filmed, wrote a feature with one of my friends and work partners, Kendrick Smith. Working on that now. Worked on it with a lot of good friends out of the Mizzou film production, and also like digital storytelling. Sort of grabbed a few people.
Yeah.
Made the team. Got to make your team. Got to work across.
Right.
Been editing that, man, for a minute. In grad school, man, I teach video art to freshmen,
Okay.
and I've been little getting familiar with fine arts, man. I feel like that scene in Black Panther where he walks into a museum and he's like, "That's ours." It feels like I'm walking into a space every day when I do that, and just putting my own work up and going, "This is now my time." So it's very I don't know. I think at first I felt like I was intruding on a space that wasn't movies, and I feel like other forms of art feel more at home to me. So like art history, art education, all that stuff, I was feeling real stupid at first. But I just did like I normally do, and I looked for the black and brown faces once I got out here to Houston, and it's been nice, man. Find your family has been the words I've been trying to live by.
For sure. No, that makes a lot of sense, man. Yeah, no, you definitely been up to a lot. Speak about some of those projects. Go a little bit in depth about them. What were their inspirations? What was the message, you were trying to get across? And where do you feel like, what kind of rhythm were you looking for, if any, in working with these projects? Were you trying to develop your style? Was it more so you just experimenting, trying to figure out what you like, what you didn't like? What kind of mindset were you in?
I'd say with especially with, like with the film, because it's been a minute working on that. Me and Kendrick wanted to, I think, to a certain extent, give ourselves permission to make something,
Mm,
um, even if it wasn't gonna, it's not the greatest thing in the world. Like we just wanted to, be able to write something, put pieces of ourselves into some of these characters, be able to put our humor on display, some dark comedy. We filmed it all in Columbia, Missouri,
mm,
and it's full of like the whole soundtrack is going to be jazz. There's animation flares up into the movie. I'm rocking my flat top. It's the real Fresh Prince style. So there's elements of who we are in it, um, and I think it was yeah, a little bit of experimentation, just our opportunity to say I don't want to wait till I'm 40 to make my first thing. I want to make it now, and I want people to be able to see that you don't have to be blonde hair, blue eyes, backed by Fortune 500
right.
stepdad to put something out there. If you want to make something happen, you can make it happen. um I think that's one of my biggest things with that project. But my work with grad school, man, that's just been, I enjoy being able to see more faces like my own in genres that I love, like science fiction and all this sort of like surreal stuff. So I make a lot of um, self portrait work, revolves around like dreams, nightmares. And I know if I ever, because sometimes it's hard to find people like to model or to help you do stuff. So that's why I always end up using myself in a lot of my work,
Okay.
because I can always hit me up. um and especially like right now,
Yeah.
like all
Yeah.
the pandemic, it feels nice to be able to be like, I can make some work still. I might have to finagle a few things, but um I would say between both of those things I spend a lot of my time with, there's a lot of just give myself permission, and then also uh recognizing that the work I do it's for me, but I know at some point I saw other people doing the same thing, and that made me feel like I could give myself permission to make certain things. So I think trying to be the voice that I was looking for has been my focus for the past 2 years.
For sure. Yeah, and I mean the voice that you've been looking for, I think that's more powerful than a lot of people, probably realize. Because I think sometimes, at least what I feel like I felt, is that space in between when you leave undergrad, even if you go directly, into grad school, because I took a semester off, but that time when you realize that your undergrad time is over, and there's still this space of figuring out, okay, regardless of whether it's grad school or work, like what does life look like after the structure of the last
Yeah.
4 years? And so, especially by that point, you probably figured out what it is you want to do, or the fields for sure you want to get into. And so at that
Mm-hmm.
point, it's like, okay, what guideline are you following? Like, so when you say you're looking, you're trying to be the voice, or that, like, that's what you're working on. I think that's extremely important, because so many people don't have that. They don't have a voice. They don't have a guide. They haven't found something or someone in what they're doing to kind of, if not model, their journey behind. I use that loosely, but to really kind of use
That blueprint, that
as a
sort
kind of
of.
blueprint, to at least kind of like figure your steps out. It's always going to be your journey, and you're going to have to make decisions that are best for you. But having something or someone to lead you usually helps. And a lot of people, especially in that time frame, don't have that. So I feel like that's very important. You mentioned something real interesting in terms of finding your family, and the opportunity you have in grad school with teaching to be teaching people that look like you, these Black and brown kids. How much of what you talked about in terms of that importance of finding your family and the opportunity that you see in people like us taking more of an interest or having more of a passion about some of these areas that you're involved in. What has that been like, having the opportunity, like you said, to teach that? So kind of expand on that a little bit. I think that's really interesting.
Well, for me, especially because this past semester was my first semester getting to teach, because we spent the first year just like, they bring us in, they try and make sure like, hey, don't mess up the kids. Like, you can't,
Right.
I know you want to do this, but they don't know that yet, and you need to make sure you have all your ducks in a row. So I just being able to work with these students, who some of them are older than I am, which it cracks me up sometimes.
Yeah.
Because I'm only 23. I'll be 24 this year. So trying to have this sort of classroom and it's online too, so there's another bit of separation from them and the material. So I have to be uh cognizant of the fact that I have to get respect from the students, but I also have to make it worth it, because I mean, I'm in classes, and I know sitting in front of a laptop for X amount of time, you can start zoning out, being like, I'm gonna go on Twitter. I don't know what this man's saying, or like, I already know this. What are we doing? Like, there's so many more distractions. I just think about having the opportunity to practice this with them and to try and get better. I let them know, especially up front, that I don't know everything, and I'm doing this because I want to know more, but I also value not just my education, but theirs. Because every time I especially like you yourself and all like the my fellow Mizzou and NBMI brothers, all the people that I've been lucky enough to meet in the past few years, because it's been very formative for me. Everyone knows something I don't, and I believe that it doesn't matter like how I feel about them, they know at least one thing I don't know. And I try to emphasize that they can learn from me, but they can learn from each other as well. And so it's been nice to, some of them are a little quiet, but trying to get them to interact with each other, and trying to validate some of the things that they assume or know, and bring out, clear out a few things, like art's not for everybody. Like, no, man, that's or like, it's just pushing a button on a camera. Like, there's a little bit more, like trying to take the things that they might believe and expand on it. Because I just remember spending so much time in undergrad thinking, especially having like spent my high school days like watching YouTube tutorial after YouTube tutorial, being like, I know how to edit. Wow, I need to be in this class. I'm doing it for a credit, and giving them space to be able to ask me questions, so that when there are students like that who they want to know why am I spending my time the way I am with them, it's because I want to challenge them. And so I'll ask them questions that don't necessarily, I'm not gonna, I told them, I'm not gonna teach you how to use Premiere. I want you to ask me how to do the thing you want to do, and we're gonna think about, we're gonna like do the concept. But if you want a tutorial, email me. But if you want to learn something, ask me a question. Because I don't know. I think a lot of times emails don't have questions. They have they have, can you do this for me? Which is, I mean, I get it, because I've been there, but the kids have taught me to be a little bit more upfront with what I expect of them. And I think I was naive with that at first. I think just because I myself have been lucky enough to have people who are straightforward with me, And I think I've yeah, just trying to be a little more of that as an educator has been a big thing for me, at least recently.
For sure. Yeah, that is no, that's really important, and I think it's extremely profound in terms of students. And I mean, we could say kids, but at the end of the day, you know, students still, because they are learning, and a lot of them do want to be educated. And I think, like you said, when they are upfront and can tell you, you know, what they expect, I think that's actually a step that students across the board should make, and not it doesn't always have to be a challenge to an
Mm-hmm.
educator or a professor or teacher or whatever, but but in a way it is a push for the teacher to at least have an understanding of how they need to approach, you know, that educational relationship. I think sometimes as educators we rather not give too much or not be overbearing, you know, than seem overwhelming. So we kind of like allow for there to be this crutch, if you will. We
Mm-hmm.
allow them to have that as opposed to letting them know up front. I think I always respected and appreciate the teachers from jump that were like, this is how it's gonna be, like this is how this class is gonna work. If you got questions, ask, because I'm not a mind reader. Like those, like, you know, like that. But that type of knowing something like that from jump lets us know, like, okay, like if this is what I'm trying to do, and especially if you're a student that's really uh engaged, really excited about what you're learning about, it'll
Mm-hmm.
make you want to ask those questions. It'll make you want to know and not necessarily be instructed on how, but be led to figuring out the how. And I think that's really important. So you, and especially still being like our age, like, you know, being 23, for you to know that and have that incorporated in your teaching now, and you can teach somebody that's, you know, 5 years younger than you with that mentality. I'm imagining how that grows and how that evolves. So in 10 years from now, and you're teaching somebody that's 18, I think that's even more powerful because now you've seen that you can pretty much work with people close to your age, which I think if you can do that, if you can work with people close to your age, I think that gives you a great perspective on how to work with people who are much younger. If that makes sense. But yeah, I think that's real profound, man. I think that's real profound. That's what's up.
And I hope that I hope that I stay within it and I don't like 5 years later
Right.
you follow up and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing.
I don't know. I don't think that's gonna happen. That is deep. Yeah. Man. So the pandemic affected. I mean, we alluded to it, but this pandemic, panoramic, Panera, parabola, parallel, whatever p word you want to use. This has it's affected everybody in a lot of different ways. For you as an artist, as a
Mhm.
creative, as a creative mind, what were some of your biggest challenges within the pandemic, and then how do you feel like the pandemic made you grow in the regards of being a creative and having a creative mind, etc.
Well, living during a Papa John's has been not for me. I think, and I think I mentioned it a little bit, just the idea of like stress with working on things. I've always been a bit of an anxious person. You know, I do like to be goofy, but I'm constantly I was doing a lot of chasing without embodying and thinking about the. It was a lot of effort without balancing smarter ways of working. And so for me, I ended up having to slow down because I ended up having stress give me health issues like back in September.
Mm,
And I'm still dealing with that, but it made it to the point where I had to take a whole month off of, I was still teaching, but that was pretty much the only thing I was doing. I wasn't, my art practice had to let it go. Like, you know, writing had to let it go, had to just like sit. And I realized like, oh, I haven't just been like still. I've just been running, 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 running. I've been running, running. No, it was like, it was, and I kind of felt silly not seeing my burnout. Um, and especially then not being able to make work I stopped with so much of my work being around like dreaming and nightmares and all this other stuff that does give me, inspiration in different ways. I stopped dreaming when I stopped making work. And so it felt like I cut myself off from all these things that normally fuel me and give me a certain amount of like breath. But then it forced me to reconsider what is productive, especially creatively, because I frequently would think of, the way one consumes work. Like if you're watching a movie, that's enjoyment. Um, and while I do agree, things like that are, it's for fun, or maybe you want to watch it for like research. You should do things that heal you and make you happy. Because if you're making work, especially if you want something creative to be your like job, like I don't have, first of all, I don't have a dream job. I do not dream of labor. I do not dream of labor. I've been shown the ways of not having to think of it as like a, as a dream job. But if what you want to do with the rest of your life is something creative, you need to find ways to not have it make you miserable at some point. And I realized that I wasn't miserable, but I was stressing myself out by making up rules for myself on how I'm supposed to work and when I'm supposed to work and how much I'm supposed to do. So I'd say the pandemic has forced me to reconsider what it is to think of time when it comes to making things, because you're always going to feel like you got to rush something. Who you rushing for it? Because man, it's too much, man. I'm trying to live till I'm 80. I will not have a heart attack because of a clock.
But nah, goals. When I talked with you 3 years ago, I think you were still in the mindset of trying to separate yourself and still find your lane, I believe. I think your goals were reflective of that. Where you are now, would you say your goals have changed? Have you met them? Have they evolved? Like what are goals like for you now with where you are?
I would say to a certain extent, they're similar. Like I feel like I got some like main objectives. Like those are the main objectives, but I have some like things along the way that I think would help me achieve being able to finding that lane, but also still trying to distinguish myself as a creator, as an artist. A few like I think I have on my Twitter. I have it pinned on my Twitter. Four four goals that sit kind of with me that I'm normally thinking about. I'm gonna pull it up so I can quote myself. Uh, make a feature length film, publish a book, have my own exhibit opening at a gallery, and get my MFA. And so those are four things that they feel like they'll take a long time, but they're not unobtainable, because I'm halfway through my MFA right now.
Right.
I'm editing the feature, so it's already, at this point we hadn't even shot it yet. But I just put out a really short book of poems. So one of them's done. One of the four is done.
Right.
And the other two are like halfway. And I don't know if they'll help me with the main things, but I realized that I made those two ideas that I had before were so broad that I had to start making a to-do list, or else that wasn't gonna go anywhere, except like it felt like saying go forward in the ocean. Like which what are you talking about?
What do you mean? Like, do I have a wow, that's a
what's
good
the
that is
no.
Man, that is no though. Well, I think what's crazy is that for you, one, to be where you are with those goals is incredible. And I think a lot of people they'll have goals and they don't even realize that some they've already achieved and some they're very close to. Because in our mind, some of us, and sometimes it depends on where we are in life, but we set these goals, but sometimes we set them and they feel or look much higher than what they actually are. It's almost like we're putting them out of reach ourselves to a
Yeah,
degree, which is very sad. And I really wish that more of us would like realize that that's going on, or have people around us to remind us that, like, no, there's a reason you set this goal and it's not something that's unattainable. I don't think people, I don't think you can truly set a goal that's unattainable or impossible. Um, because I don't think, like, anything that you put your mind to, you can do. So I don't think in your mind you would formulate this as a goal if you didn't feel like it was possible. You may not know how, but it is extremely possible. And I think if people kind of thought of it in that context, I think there would be a lot less pressure and a lot less stress around hitting goals and then also hitting them at a certain time. I think that's a
absolutely.
huge thing as well. Um, Man, I only got one final question for you, and you already know what this question is. So, but man, you are a grad student, you are an educator, a teacher, you are a creative, an artist, and within all of these things, it is very clear through your own personal profiles in this interview that you clearly are about your community. You clearly are about giving back and teaching the students in the generation of tomorrow. Within all of that, and that being a part of everything that you do, what makes you as a creative, as an artist, as a filmmaker, as a professor, as a student, as all of these things, what makes you qualified?
I would like to think it is, mm, for me, understanding, again, kind of going back to that quote, like the idea of chasing something, but be understanding that I have to be comfortable with knowing that I will, I can be competitive, I can have ambitions, but I will never be the best.
Mm,
I think if I ever were the best at anything, I would be so damn lonely in terms of like conversation. I never want to be the smartest person in the room. I'm not trying to be stupid because I don't want to, I don't want to look goofy, but but I am, mm, I should be comfortable with not knowing the answer and happy to uh to read about the solution.